This morning's forecast update just changed the game. I need to read you something from the SPC's Day 4-8 convective outlook published at 4:01 a.m. CDT today, Friday, May 15th, 2026. This is new. This is different from yesterday's forecast, and it is more alarming than anything the SPC has written about this upcoming weekend in any previous update. A severe weather outbreak will be possible from Monday afternoon into the evening and overnight period. On Monday, the western trough will take on a negative tilt before ejecting across the central plains with strong southwesterly flow aloft overspreading the region. This will result in strong lee cyclone development across western Kansas. A surface cold front will extend northward to a secondary surface low across the upper Midwest. A dry line will extend southward across portions of western Kansas into western Oklahoma. Numerous thunderstorms are expected to develop along and ahead of the cold, front and further south along the dry line Monday afternoon and evening from Nebraska into central Kansas. Strong lee cyclone development across western Kansas. A dry line extending through western Kansas into western Oklahoma. Numerous thunderstorms expected from Nebraska into central Kansas. A severe weather outbreak, not possible, not likely, will be possible. The language is confirmed. The mechanism is confirmed. The geography is confirmed. And then AccuWeather's chief on-air meteorologist Bernie Rayno published this just hours ago, updated this morning. Monday may bring the greatest risk of severe weather and tornadoes in more than a week to the central states. As we get closer to Monday, the categories and coverage of severe weather are likely to increase. AccuWeather is predicting a moderate risk of damaging storms and isolated tornadoes, but that could be upgraded to a high risk, especially if forecasters believe it could evolve into an outbreak. That could be upgraded to a high risk, Bernie Rayno. AccuWeather's chief on-air meteorologist published today, saying Monday could receive the first high-risk designation of the entire 2026 season, 0 high-risk days in 2026 through May 14th, in a season that has produced an EF5, an EF4, state record hail, 4 tornado emergencies in one night, and 12 confirmed American deaths. And now, the forecast just turned dangerous. Here is everything. Before I get into Monday's developing monster, I need to address what is happening right now, today, because the SPC just upgraded today's forecast in a way that affects millions of people in the Midwest. Severe thunderstorms, capable of producing severe and damaging winds and large to very large hail, are likely late this afternoon and evening across much of Iowa and vicinity. Isolated to scattered severe hail and damaging winds are possible over a broader area from parts of the southern high plains to the upper Midwest. Initial supercells should pose a threat for large to isolated very large hail of 2+ inches in diameter, before likely quick upscale growth this evening across Iowa supports a risk for mainly scattered severe and damaging winds. Some of these gusts could exceed 75 mm on a localized basis, given the expectation for an organized cluster and ample instability. A tornado or two could also occur this evening, as low-level shear gradually increases with a strengthening low-level jet. Some adjustments have been made to the slight and enhanced risk areas. Namely, the slight risk has been extended northward into parts of southeast Minnesota and southwest Wisconsin, where some risk for hail-producing supercells should exist along and ahead of the front. The enhanced risk has also been expanded to include more of western Iowa, as multiple supercells may form and eventually congeal into one or more bowing clusters through the evening. The enhanced risk just expanded to include more of western Iowa. The slight risk just extended northward into southeast Minnesota and southwest Wisconsin. Those are upgrades, confirmed in the Day 1 update this morning. Upgrades that affect Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, Davenport, and the Iowa Quad Cities corridor. 75 mph wind gusts possible in Iowa tonight. Large to very large hail of 2+ inches with initial supercells. Upscale growth into bowing clusters through the evening. A tornado or two as the low-level jet strengthens. If you are in Iowa right now, this afternoon and this evening are your severe weather window. The storm sequence that is building toward Monday's potential high-risk day begins today with an enhanced risk for Iowa. The same Gulf moisture that fuels Monday's outbreak is arriving in Iowa today, driving the instability that the SPC is now calling sufficient for 2+ inch hail and 75 mPh gusts. Get your vehicles under cover before 3 p.m. in Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, and Davenport. Have your shelter identified. And watch for rapidly escalating tornado watches this evening as the low-level jet strengthens after sunset. Tomorrow, Saturday, May 16th, carries its own active severe weather threat that I need to describe precisely because it is both dangerous in its own right and the direct precursor to Sunday and Monday's outbreak sequence. Severe storms capable of large to very large hail, wind damage, and perhaps a couple of tornadoes will be possible Saturday afternoon and evening across parts of the Central Plains. Scattered thunderstorms will also pose potential for strong to severe winds across the lower to mid-Missouri Valley. A trough is expected to begin to deepen across the western United States as strengthening mid-level flow moves southward from the northern Pacific Friday and Saturday. Downstream across the central United States, upper-level westerly flow will strengthen across the central and northern Rockies, with strengthening lee troughing across the plains. On Saturday, a risk of severe weather will extend along a 1,000-mile swath from northwestern Texas to central Indiana and back into western Nebraska. A few tornadoes will be possible with the strongest storms, along with straight-line wind gusts of 60 to 70 mph and an AccuWeather local storm max of 80 km/h. A 1,000-mile swath of severe weather on Saturday. From northwestern Texas to central Indiana and back into western Nebraska, tornadoes possible. 80 mph AccuWeather storm max wind gusts. And the lee troughing strengthening across the plains on Saturday is the atmospheric setup that begins the surface low development process that produces Monday's major cyclone over western Kansas. The communities in west central Kansas and south central Nebraska, Colby, Dodge City, Liberal in Kansas, McCook, Kearney, Hastings, and Lincoln in Nebraska face the highest risk for Saturday's discrete supercell event with baseball-sized hail and EF2 plus tornado potential. The same Saturday setup I described in yesterday's video has now been confirmed and refined by today's model updates. Saturday is a severe weather day for 50 million people across a 1,000-mile corridor. It is also the atmospheric test run that determines the exact moisture quality and cap strength for Sunday and Monday. Forecasters watching Saturday's storm development will sharpen the Sunday and Monday outlooks in real time as the environment reveals itself. The severe weather threat will increase on Sunday over part of the central United States, with a more concentrated area of powerful storms around eastern Nebraska, eastern South Dakota, southwestern Minnesota, and western Iowa. AccuWeather is predicting a moderate risk of damaging storms and isolated tornadoes, but that could be upgraded to a high risk, especially if forecasters believe it could evolve into an outbreak. AccuWeather's chief meteorologist is explicitly putting a high-risk upgrade on the table for Sunday. Let me explain what that means in the context of the SPC's protocol, because it is the most important institutional question in American meteorology right now. A high risk is usually for major tornado outbreaks, with numerous strong to violent tornadoes expected, occasionally derechos with widespread destructive wind gusts, and these outlooks are typically reserved for the most extreme events. They are generally only issued on the day of the event. However, there have been 3 occurrences of a high risk being issued for day 2 of the outlook period, specifically April 7th, 26, April 14th, 2012, and March 15th, 2025. Under the official protocol, a high risk cannot be issued for day 3 of the outlook period. 3 times in history has the SPC issued a day 2 high risk, April 7th, 26, April 14th, 2012, March 15th, 2025. 3 times in 20 years. And in 2026, a season that has produced more extreme events than any in recent memory without a single high risk, the question of whether Sunday or Monday receives that designation is being publicly raised by AccuWeather's chief meteorologist. The criteria for a high risk are specific. A day 2 high risk has only been issued 3 times. It requires both a very high degree of certainty, approximately 60%, for an event which is still at least 48 hours away, and a reasonable level of confidence that the severe thunderstorm outbreak would include significant severe weather, such as EF2 plus tornadoes, hurricane-force winds, and egg-sized hail. 60% confidence, EF2 plus tornadoes, hurricane-force winds, egg-sized hail, those are the thresholds. And the current setup, a negatively tilted trough, lee cyclone development over western Kansas, dry line from western Kansas through western Oklahoma, 30% any severe on both Sunday and Monday, 3,000 to 4,000 alder Kigaur ML Cape, 40 to 50 knot low-level jet, has every one of those ingredient confirmations sitting in the forecast data as of this morning. Whether Sunday or Monday becomes 2026's first high-risk day depends on today's and tomorrow's model refinements. If Saturday's storms verify the moisture quality at the high end of the scenario space, if the Gulf moisture surges further north and earlier than models are currently showing, Sunday's 30% risk is a high-risk candidate. If the moisture stays at the modeled levels, Sunday stays at 30% moderate equivalent risk. Either way, the storm is dangerous. Either way, you need to be in your shelter before Sunday afternoon. This weekend is the first time in the 2026 season where the SPC's new conditional intensity group system is going to be applied to an outbreak level setup, and I want to make sure every viewer knows how to use it. High-end severe weather like intense and violent tornadoes cause by far the greatest loss of life and property, and this improvement allows us to highlight days when these specific threats are more likely, said Evan Bentley, warning coordination meteorologist for NOAA's Storm Prediction Center. Level 2 shows a dangerous environment with the potential for intense EF3 plus tornadoes or extremely large hail. Inside the hatched area signifies the potential for EF2 plus tornadoes, 75 plus mph winds and hail greater than 2 inches. When the SPC's Day 1 outlooks for Sunday and Monday are released, the most important forecast documents of the weekend, look for two specific things on the tornado probability map. First, the hatched area. Hatched areas on the tornado probability map indicate a 10% or greater probability of EF2 or stronger tornadoes within 25 miles of any point. If a hatched area appears over Omaha, Des Moines, or Kansas City, that means the SPC is saying there is at least a 1 in 10 chance of a violent tornado within 25 miles of your location. That is not a marginal probability for an individual event. That is an emergency level probability. Second, the CIG indicator. If a CIG2 tornado indicator appears, that means the SPC is saying that if a tornado forms in this environment, it will likely be EF3 or stronger. EF3 means 136 to 165 mph winds. Homes lose exterior walls. Cars are lifted and thrown. Well-built structures suffer major damage. Watch for both the hatched area and the CIG2 indicator on Sundays and Monday's Day 1 outlooks. If both appear over the same geographic corridor, that is the SPC's most complete and alarming communication that violent tornadoes are not just possible, but are their primary forecast scenario for that area. The SPC's use of the phrase, a strong lee cyclone development across western Kansas in this morning's Day 4 or 8 discussion, is the single most important new detail in today's forecast. I want to explain what it means with full precision. On Monday, the western trough will take on a negative tilt before ejecting across the central plains, with strong southwesterly flow aloft overspreading the region. This will result in strong lee cyclone development across western Kansas. A surface cold front will extend northward to a secondary surface low across the upper Midwest. A dry line will extend southward across portions of western Kansas into western Oklahoma. Numerous thunderstorms are expected to develop along and ahead of the cold front and further south along the dry line Monday afternoon and evening from Nebraska into central Kansas. Lee cyclogenesis. I described this mechanism earlier in the series, but today I need to be more specific because this particular Lee cyclone, forming over western Kansas under a negatively tilted upper trough, is the atmospheric engine that will organize Monday's outbreak. When a negatively tilted upper trough crosses the Rocky Mountains, the pattern of upper-level divergence that it creates in the lee of the mountains is particularly powerful. Upper-level divergence means air is being pulled away from the upper atmosphere above western Kansas, creating a drop in surface pressure, exactly the mechanism that spins up a surface low. The stronger the divergence from the negatively tilted trough, the faster the surface low deepens, and the faster the surface low deepens, the more organized and intense the cold, front, dry line, and warm sector become. The European model's 990 MB surface low over southwestern Kansas on Sunday is the manifestation of this Lee cyclogenesis process 1 day ahead of Monday's negatively tilted trough arrival. Sunday's deep low sets the stage. Monday's negatively tilted trough is the main event, the upper-level feature that provides maximum force descent right over the instability axis at exactly the right time in exactly the right geographic position to produce the most organized and violent supercell environment of the entire 2026 season. The period from Sunday into Monday could evolve into a severe weather outbreak with hundreds of incidents of strong wind gusts and multiple tornadoes. Hundreds of incidents of strong wind gusts, multiple tornadoes. This is AccuWeather's chief meteorologist's language, the same language that, if a high risk is issued, will be used in the SPC's own Outlook text. The difference between AccuWeather saying it today and the SPC saying it in a Day 1 high risk tomorrow or Sunday morning is merely the threshold of confidence required before the SPC commits to their most extreme designation. AccuWeather made a specific observation in their forecast article published just yesterday that I want to highlight because it adds a human dimension to this weekend's threat that the meteorological data alone cannot capture. Thunderstorms will become more widespread and intense across the Great Plains, Mississippi Valley, and the Midwest into next week, interfering with travel, graduations, and outdoor plans, and putting lives and property at risk. Graduations. This weekend is the peak of the spring graduation season across the United States. Hundreds of thousands of people, students, families, guests, are gathering outdoors or traveling to outdoor commencement ceremonies across Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Missouri, and Illinois this weekend. Des Moines, Omaha, Lincoln, Kansas City, Minneapolis, Milwaukee. All of them are in the threat corridor. All of them have graduation events planned. An outdoor graduation ceremony in Des Moines on Sunday afternoon, with parents sitting in bleachers on a football field, students in caps and gowns, families traveling from across the country, is exactly the mass gathering scenario that makes a 30% outbreak possible day particularly dangerous from a casualty prevention standpoint. Tens of thousands of people outdoors in a location not designed for shelter in the middle of the most dangerous severe weather window of the entire season. If you're attending or organizing an outdoor graduation ceremony anywhere in the Iowa, Nebraska, Kansas, Minnesota, or Wisconsin corridor this weekend, have a shelter plan for the event. Know the nearest substantial indoor structure? Know who makes the call to move indoors and at what trigger point they make it. And understand that a 30% any severe probability means the SPC is saying, this area will probably experience severe weather on this day. Not might, probably. Every outdoor event organizer in the threat corridor needs to read today's SPC outlook before their event begins. Every university conducting commencement ceremonies this weekend needs a severe weather protocol in place before Sunday's dangerous window opens. Let me give you the most specific possible guide for this weekend's sequence, organized by day. Today, Friday, May 15th. Enhanced risk for Iowa. Primary threat zone, Iowa, with the enhanced risk expanded to western Iowa. Secondary threat, southeast Minnesota and southwest Wisconsin. Slight risk extended north. Primary hazards, very large hail 2+ inches. Damaging winds with gusts to 75 mph, tornado or 2 possible. Timing, late afternoon through this evening, extending overnight as the low-level jet strengthens. Des Moines, Cedar Rapids, Davenport, Iowa City. Your severe weather window is open right now. Tomorrow, Saturday, May 16th, 1,000-mile swath from Texas to Indiana. The severe weather risk will extend along a 1,000-mile swath from northwestern Texas to central Indiana and back into western Nebraska. A few tornadoes will be possible with the strongest storms, along with straight-line wind gusts of 60 to 70 mm/s and an AccuWeather local storm max of 80 mm/h. Primary threat zone, west central Kansas, south central Nebraska, extending east through Missouri and Indiana. Primary hazards, baseball-sized hail, few tornadoes including isolated EF2 plus 80 mph wind gusts. Timing, afternoon through evening. Colby, Dodge City, Liberal, McCook, Kearney, Hastings, primary hail and tornado zone. Sunday, May 17th, 30% outbreak risk, primary threat zone. Eastern Nebraska, eastern South Dakota, southwestern Minnesota, western Iowa. 30% risk core. Extended 15% zone from Texas to Wisconsin. Primary hazards, all hazards, tornadoes likely, hail to 3+ inches possible, wind gusts 70 to 80 km/h. Possible high risk upgrade, Omaha, Lincoln, Des Moines, primary severe weather corridor. Monday, May 18th, negatively tilted trough outbreak. Numerous thunderstorms are expected to develop along and ahead of the cold front and further south along the dry line Monday afternoon and evening from Nebraska into central Kansas. Primary threat zone, Nebraska through central Kansas, extending northeast toward Iowa and Illinois. 30% risk core, strong lee cyclone development across western Kansas. Negatively tilted trough. Outbreak possible Monday afternoon into evening and overnight. Wichita, Salina, Hutchinson, McCook, North Platte, Lincoln, Omaha. Primary corridor. Here is where we stand on Friday, May 15th, 2026. The new forecast just turned dangerous, not gradually, fast. Today's SPC updates confirm the enhanced risk expansion for Iowa with 75 man-millimeter gusts and upscale bowing clusters tonight. The day 4-8 confirmed the negatively tilted trough, lee cyclone development over western Kansas, and dry line from western Kansas through western Oklahoma for Monday. AccuWeather's chief meteorologist raised the explicit possibility of a high-risk upgrade for Sunday, and the Wikipedia SPC high-risk list was updated just 9 hours ago, confirming that the Day 2 high-risk protocol has been invoked only 3 times in 20 years. As we get closer to Monday, the categories in coverage of severe weather are likely to increase, AccuWeather chief on-air meteorologist Bernie Rayno said. Likely to increase. Those 3 words from a meteorologist who has been tracking this season all spring are the most important 3 words in today's video. The forecast is not stable, it is not settled, it is trending more dangerous with every model cycle. In each successive Day 1 outlook this weekend, for Saturday, then Sunday, then Monday, will bring increasingly precise, increasingly alarming information about exactly who is in the path of what is building. Your action items right now, today. Confirm your shelter before tonight's Iowa Enhanced Risk opens. Set your overnight alerts before you go to sleep tonight. Know your Saturday plan before Saturday morning. Know your Sunday plan before Sunday noon. Know your Monday plan before Monday morning. And understand that the May 1926 window, the most historically active severe weather week in American records, begins the day after Monday's outbreak. The forecast just turned dangerous. The biggest storm of May is not next week. It is this weekend. It begins tonight. Stay safe. I will be back with updates as the weekend unfolds.